Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Digital to Dice podcast. I am Dave.
I'm Ron.
And Ron, we got episode 135 today.
The Air Traffic Control Edition, because 135 is one of the frequencies that they use to guide your plane to safety.
And that's why you're here. You bring the useless information to the show.
Hey, there's a game show. Sometimes they do it here, but it's basically in the UK. It's called The Chase. Have you heard of that?
No.
And so it's a panel of 4 contestants, and they'll go one-on-one with a host, and then they'll face the chaser, who is a trivia night at the bar.
Mm-hmm.
That's a thing here. Well, they have 6 of them that they rotate through, and they're all quiz masters.
Oh.
And so one of the things that they have to do is keep up on absolutely useless information. And that is when you remind me that, but that's what they do. But they make an awful lot of money to know, who was in Duran Duran before Simon Le Bon, or, all that stuff that's like, wow.
Yeah.
Why do you ever need to do that? Because someday you might get paid to spout that information off.
You never know. I routinely will get texts from my uncle, and he'll be like, Dave, what was Wayne Gretzky's first pro team, stuff like that. Dave, who were the 3 goalies for St. Louis in the 69-70 playoffs? All the time, and I'll fire right back to him, and he'll win prizes at the bar. So it's kind of like phone a friend. It's funny that you talk about the 135 there for the traffic controller. I have this app on my phone. I think it's called Flight Radar. And it's neat because what it used to do is we'd be sitting outside, down when I go to my that uncle I talked about. We go to his house, right, and we sit outside and we have a cookout. And he's the planes go right over his head heading into Boston. And if you fire up this app and look at the plane, it goes into augmented reality, and you just point your phone wherever, and it finds the plane, and it tells you what the plane is and where it's coming from or where it's going. And, I'm not that far from the Boston airport. So,
right,
all the time, we'll be sitting there one after another. And I was like, whoop, this one's coming in from Minnesota. Or, oh, this one's coming in from Greece. Or, this one's heading out to, Frankfurt or something. And it's a really fun app, although we tried it the other night, and they turned it into a paid app.
Oh.
So it was fun for a while, many years. We were sitting there just looking at the planes. I went to do it last night. I was like, why ain't this happening? It's like, oh, you need to pay for this now. It's like, nah. For the amount of times I use it, it ain't worth $5 a month. Sorry, it's just not,
When the 2 times I went to Shea was before they changed the approach route for LaGuardia. So you'd be sitting there watching the baseball game in front of you as you're plane spotting with all the planes coming into LaGuardia, and United and Continental and maybe Braniff, because the first time I was there was 77.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So anyway, ways to get a hold of us here on the Digital to Dice podcast. DigitalToDice.com is the website where we park all the podcasts. Over on Spreaker, 978-751-DICE, 978-751-3423. That's the text line. Send us a text. We may or may not read that on the show. DigitalToDice@yahoo.com is the way to get a hold of us. And Facebook.com/groups/Digital to Dice. Join the discussion over on Facebook. And if you'd like to get some Digital to Dice gear, we do have a Cafe Press shop over at cafepress.com/Digital to Dice. And I'll just throw this out as well. If you'd like to become a Patreon member, we have a Patreon over at patreon.com/Digital to Dice. So many ways you can team up with us here on the show and make the show better, is what we like to say. So anyway, so this is show 135, and I think the topic in this show is going to be, it's just going to be us today. And I know we've had a lot of guests lined up, and so I just want to clarify that, as you know, Ron just got over COVID, and so that, threw a wrench into the system over here. He's doing fine, and of course, that's the most important thing. But we did have a whole bunch of guests lined up, and we did do J. Thomas Hetrick with the Spiders baseball. Boy, that was a fun.
Wasn't it?
Yeah, we went live on YouTube with that, and we had a good time with that. That was a good long show talking old time baseball with him. But we had other guests lined up. One actually had COVID himself, and he's doing fine. But at the time, he couldn't do the show. And we have another author coming up, and another game designer coming up, and Boy, we have someone else coming up too. We were chock full there, but the COVID thing kind of messed up. We were supposed to have
the last 2 weeks because of that.
Yeah, so we were supposed to have 3 or 4 guests in a row because that's when we we're going to do it. But that got messed up. But we will have them back on, as we got a whole bunch of good things happening this summer on Digital to Dice. But anyway, this show is just going to be the two of us, and we're going to talk about the honeymoon phase of a game. And I got to give a shout out to Hockey Unreal, who said that in one of his videos when he was talking about, I don't know if this is just the honeymoon phase of the game or if I really, really like this game. So that's kind of...
yeah, I like that, yeah.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about that today. But before we do that, should we get to what we're playing?
Absolutely.
All right, I'm going to go first because I'm all excited.
Yes, I can tell.
I am all excited. So, what have I been playing?
What have you been playing, Dave?
I have been playing a metric crap ton of Hockey Bones.
Metric crap tons.
Hockey
Nice.
Bones, yeah. And this is something where, remember, I've talked about this game on the show for quite some time now in the background. And I said, one of these days, I'm not ready for it. Remember that? I just said, I'm not ready for this game. Because when I bought it probably a year and a half ago, and I started to read the instructions, and I was a little lost. And that's when I was still kind of early in my game playing stuff. I really wasn't into the long games. I was, I started off with the quick play games from Downey, and then shootout hockey. So I think that's where I kind of was when I went to play this game. Was I wasn't in that state of gaming mind yet. I still was in my learning phase. Mm-hmm. So now that I'm, quite a bit, along on that phase, now I can tackle the bigger games. So I always said one day I will tackle this game, because I bought it, PDF version. I printed out a couple teams, but I never threw it out or get rid of it. It's just been sitting in my drawer till I was ready to do it. I watched a bunch of videos. I just couldn't grasp this game by watching the videos. And finally the other night, I don't know what it was, I had the hockey playoffs on, and I pulled the directions out and I says, okay, I'm going to read this. And me and you had talked about sitting down and trying to figure this out together.
Right.
Okay. Right. So I started reading the directions of this, and I'm like, wait a sec. This is not nearly as difficult as it looks in the videos, and not nearly as difficult like when I thumb through the directions. Like, this really is not that difficult.
It is, though, rather daunting when you pull directions down. It's 15 pages.
Yeah, when you pull out a hockey game and you got 15, 16 pages, and you're just like, oh, my gosh, how am I going to, again, it was just daunting to look at. It's kind of like when I buy a book. I like to read books once in a while, but like I don't buy the novels that are 400 or 500 pages because I'm like, oh, my gosh. Or you see on Amazon or Facebook once in a while, you see a really cool book come up in your feed. And it's like, oh, look at this time travel book. I'm like, oh, this would be great. It's like, oh, it's part 1 of a series of 6. I'm like, oh, do I really want to get involved in a series of 6 books? You know what I mean? So it becomes daunting like that. Mm-hmm. And so I said, nope, I put it on and I started reading it and had the game on, and I'm going, holy cow, this has got to be one of the best written instruction books or instruction manuals for a game I've ever read. It covered everything. I did find a couple of questions I had that were just kind of weird things, like what happens if the goalie's pulled and you're on the power play, and then how do you read this? I mean, there's like some weird scenarios that don't come up very often, but 90 to 95% of that game, when I got done reading the manual, I was like, I got it. I can play this game. And everything's done on one chart. So the player cards are the 612 grid, and there's a ton of symbols on the card. And that's another thing that's kind of daunting, is you see all these symbols, you're like, man, how am I going to memorize all of this? Well, all the symbols are on the chart, and they tell you if you're even strength, if you're on the power play, or if you're shorthanded, it tells you what to do with that. And slowly but surely, you just start memorizing the symbols to a point where I'm not really even looking at the chart that much anymore because I know what they all do at this point. So I tackled the Hockey Bones. I read the directions. I didn't need to actually sit down with you at all on this. I figured it out pretty much all on my own.
You did very well with it, yeah.
I went on to Delphi, asked a couple of questions, and got some answers. And actually, when I went back and watched the videos from Hockey Unreal and Peter Miller, were the two people who did the Hockey Bones videos, now that I've read the directions and started playing it, their videos spot on. However, from the outside, I think Hockey Unreal said it, if you're sitting on the sidelines watching this game, it looks complex as heck. And it does, and it's daunting. And the instruction manual is huge, and just everything about this game just spells complexity. And then you sit down, you're like, this game moves along pretty well. I'm starting to learn how it goes. The learning curve was, I would say, 25% of what I thought it was going to be. Because I kept hearing that Hockey Bones, the learning curve. And so I'm like, okay, I need to tackle this game now. And I went, wait a sec, this learning curve is not nearly what it's making out to be. So I've been playing a ton of that. I have the, again, I had this a while ago. So I had the 70-71 season. I think I had the Bruins and the Blackhawks printed out. So I started.
That is your go-to season.
It is. That's one of my go-to seasons, the 70-71. And that's not even the year the Bruins won the Cup. That's the year they should have won the Cup. But you know what it is? That's the year that Canadians and the Blackhawks went 7 games. So you had Dryden and Esposito and, a couple of my favorite goalies from back in the day. So I love replaying that series. So I pulled out Bruins Blackhawks and played a couple of games, and it's like, wow, this thing is pretty good. It's very, very similar to Apple Hockey, which, as you know, I really, really like. It takes just about as long as Apple Hockey. Setup's a little simpler because you only have the one chart. Then I have the Peter Miller cheat sheets off to the side, the reference guide or whatever. So just in case I get stuck, I look at that and it kind of helps me through. Yeah. But you don't need all the charts set up. But anyway, boy, what a fun game! The learning curve's not nearly what it was. And I've been playing this game, like I'll get up before work and I'll play some, and then I come racing home and I play after work. In fact, last night I got home from the rink at 11:30, and I think I put the stats in. I was watching jerseys, and about midnight I jumped back in. I'm playing game 1 of the Cup Finals. I printed up Montreal, so I got Montreal, Chicago playing the Cup Finals, and I think I played a period last night before I went to bed. And I was like, oh boy, 1 o'clock, better get to bed, But yeah, Hockey Bones, what a fun game that is.
Glad you're enjoying it.
Yep, I actually ordered a couple of seasons from Drive-Thru Cards, and now that drivetrucards.com, that's where I got the fast action cards for shootout hockey.
Yeah, and they're deck of card size and very, very nice.
They're poker cards. They're glossy. They're the corners are rounded. So the ones I got for the shootout hockey have printed front and back with the shootout hockey logo on one side and the 100 fast action cards on the other side. And so they do a fantastic job. So I haven't got my first order in yet. I ordered 72, 73 first, but I hear they're going to be just as nice looking. So
I would hope so.
So I believe that. In fact, I looked at the website, and I don't know if you can get the regular print through the PT games or not anymore, or if they've kind of transferred everything over to drive-thru, which would be fine because the drive-thru cards are fantastic from what I hear. The ones I have are, and everyone's saying that they're exactly the same. So looking forward to that. And the PDFs, I think the PDF seasons are $12. So
great price. Yeah,
so you have a choice of, myself being a completionist, I like to have every team on hand to play. So and they have everybody too. So I think 70-71 was like 51 pages. So it's like, do I really want to print out 51 pages and cut them all up, or do I just want to have drive-through cards do it and send it to me? And
yeah, I can't imagine doing that with a modern season with all 32 teams.
Jeepers. Yeah, I didn't even think of that. Yeah. So anyway, very pleased with Hockey Bones, and that's kind of a little bit of the reason why we picked the honeymoon phase, because again, am I in the honeymoon phase of this game, or is this game just that good? A lot of similarities to Apple Hockey. That really is. Some things I think it does a little bit better, and there's some things I think Apple does a little bit better. Just again, personal preference. But this is right up there. I also did, just to make sure, I went back and did play a game of Apple Hockey. I played the 69-70 season. I did. The Oakland Seals coming into Boston, taking on the Boston Bruins, and it was a 6-0 Boston win in real life, and the Bruins actually hung on for a 3-2 win in my Apple playthrough with Ken Hodge scoring all 3 goals for the Bruins.
Wow!
Yeah, that was a fun game. Charlie Hodge was in net for the Seals, and he made a ton of saves.
They brothers?
No, I don't know. I don't think so, but I don't know.
Not a common last name.
No. But he was robbing Busick left and right. Busick couldn't score on him. It was kind of fun. The Seals had a defenseman named I think it was Dick Matuisi. And every time I play the Seals, he seems to be their defenseman. And his scoring range is like 11 to 13. And he scored a goal to make it 2-2 in the second period. It was hilarious that he would score. A second-line defenseman on the Seals would score a goal. But that's what makes these games fun, is when that happens. And so Bruins hung on for 3-2. And so I played APA and I played the Hockey Bones kind of back-to-back. And this is... I as much as I love APA, boy, this Hockey Bones is right up there, too. It does really nice. Good. In fact, it was I think it was this guy, Roberto, for the Canadians. Fourth line right winger for the Canadians scored in Game 1 of the Cup final that I'm playing right now.
Yeah, folk here on Quebec after that.
He might have been, yeah, but he scored the goal there, so I forget what the score is in that game, but I'm been chipping away at Game 1 in that.
I'm curious to see what Dryden's card is, because I don't remember him. Well, that was the year I was born, so I don't remember anything.
Yeah.
But if I remember correctly, he didn't play in that many regular season games.
No, he came in at the very end of the season and just got hot, and they rode him through the playoffs. And I forget who their normal goalies were. I think it was Mir.
Was Rogie still there, or was he gone?
It might have been Rogie Vachon. I forget now. But I know Phil Mir was one of the goalies. But I'm just riding Dryden through the playoffs because he played the entire playoffs. So we're going to play him in Esposito.
I know when they won in '86 in Waz rookie year, he did play about 25 games.
Yeah,
they went with Waz, Faney, and I'm not sure if Hayward was there or not. But it was a rotation of goalies that they used, and Wad just became the hot hand, and they rode him through. So anyway, because all games are pretty much carded on the regular season, is it going to be possible for Dryden to do, depending on what his card was, what he did in the playoffs, because it's based on his regular season stuff?
I don't know what they based it on. It was Rogie, so it's Dryden, Phil Mir, and Rogie Vachon for the Canadians and that. I'm not sure what they're going to do with that's the thing, is I don't know how they rate that. Maybe we'll have to ask somebody and see how they rated him, because if he only played a handful of games and then he went 7 games in the playoffs, he still was pretty good, Yeah,
so,
And the other thing I like about the Hockey Bones is they rate. I think they rate everybody, and if you played for 2 teams, you get a card. And it'd be like, Boston / California, or Minnesota / New York. So he can play for either team.
You were showing me some defenseman card from Boston and all the penalties that were on there, and I looked at the stats in the bottom, and he had played 1 game and had 4 penalty minutes.
Yeah, that's something actually PJet pointed out to me. He says, "Hey, this guy only played 1 game, so." He goes, they only ran 4D back in the day, sometimes a 5th defenseman, but they didn't go 3 lines. So I was playing 3 lines. So I actually took him out the next game, and I'm trying to run 2 lines for defense when I play that era, and maybe have a 5th guy off to the side and then just plug him in from time to time.
You're dressing 17, so you'd have enough for 3 forward, 2 defensemen, and 3 extra skaters.
Yeah. So what I'm doing in the Hockey Bones Game 1 of the Cup Finals there, I looked at the as-played list for that game, and Canadians only ran 4D, but they did run 4 lines. Chicago ran 3 lines, but had 3 sets of D, either 5 or 6 defensemen. So what I did is kind of neat. So Canadians are only running 2 defensive lines, but they're running 4 forward lines, whereas Chicago's going 3 and 3 on forward and D. So it's interesting to see how that plays out. Again, that's just personal preference for me.
Yeah.
I did one thing that was really neat is I printed out these little they look like tickets, and they're lines, and it's offense and defensive lines for hockey. And I have the defense 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, and then the offense is 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3, 4. And I have 10 tickets if you follow, and so line 1 has most of them, then line 2, then line 3. And I shuffle these cards or these tickets, whatever you want to do, and I put them on the table, and I flip to see what line comes out. And it has given me quite the variety. So I have 1 for offense and 1 for defense for each team. So I could get line 3 defense and line offense on one team, and then line 2 offense and line 1 defense on the other team. So I'm getting quite the variety, because as you know, I used to just go line 1, line 1, line 2, line 2, line 3, line 3.
For me, that's the easiest, but I'm the casual hockey fan, so trying to match up.
Yeah.
But I like the idea of being random.
So the idea
on the tabletop, that's easy to do.
Yeah, and so it's heavily weighted towards line 1. They get the most shifts, and then line 2, then line 3. Line 4 offense just gets the 1 shift a period, so they'll get 2 minutes a period, so they'll get 6 minutes in the game. And again, I can override this at any time. If line 4 comes out and it's a penalty, of course I'm not going to leave line 4 in the penalty kill or the power play, so I'll mix that up. But it just gives me a good starting point, and it at least gets the ball rolling to mix and match the lines as you see fit. And, if line 1 plays, 2 or 3 shifts in a row, which it's possible, well, that means they're not going to see a lot of ice time later on in the period because there's going to be more lines at 2s and 3s coming up. So that means you burnt them out, and they got to rest longer. So there's all these different ways you can think about the line changes. But I finally think I found a good way to change lines on the tabletop. And I tried it in APA, and it worked, and it works in Hockey Bones. I don't know if it would work in Hockey Blast because they have their own way of doing it with like skipping lines and lulls and stuff. I bet it would work Strat on the tabletop.
Oh, I'm sure it would work with Strat. In fact, it would probably work quite well with Strat.
So I haven't tried it yet with Strat on the tabletop, but basically every 2 minutes you change a line, you flip the card at the 2 minute mark and see which line's supposed to come out. And if the line stays out there, they stay out there, and that's fine, But I've enjoying. In fact, I've shared that quite a bit. I did a video on that, and I probably got about 10 or 12 people that email me over at digitaltodice@yahoo.com. It's like, hey, can you send me those line things? I didn't think they were anything special. It's just 1 to 10, It's 10 cards, and most being 1, then a bunch of 2s and a couple of 3s, but they look nice, so I sent off that file to a bunch of people.
It's a randomizer.
Yeah. It's a randomizer. So I've been really, really hitting the hockey hard. I haven't got back to my spiders, so sadly I haven't played any baseball because I've been really doing the hockey thing with the Hockey Bones and the APA. But yeah, so I guess it must be the NHL playoffs, which have been fantastic.
I've watched a lot.
How many Game 7s did they have? There
were 5.
5 out of 8?
5 out of 8.
Game 7s? And some of those even went to overtime, I think?
Both of the Sunday games did.
Yeah.
The Pittsburgh Rangers and Dallas Calgary, they went into overtime.
That was fantastic. That goalie, Ottinger, for Dallas, stood on his head against the Flames. It was just it felt like a power play the entire overtime. And he's just making save, and finally Johnny Gaudreau threw one over his shoulder from the corner, a BB of a shot. And I've just felt bad for this kid because he played his oh my gosh. In fact, everybody in the Calgary line was just like, dude. The other goalie for Calgary, he was like, you are effing awesome. You have such a good future, and much respect to that guy there. I did want Calgary to win because I did want to see the Battle of Alberta, Calgary-Edmonton.
I'm glad to see McDavid get out of the first round.
Jeebus, yeah. How about those Maple Leafs?
Wow. Do we? I should check to see if we. Yeah, there you go. If we get T-shirts and clothing made for the Canadiens winning the draft lottery.
Yeah, they went from Stanley Cup Finals to the first 32nd place team in the league.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's never been 32 teams before. Someone had to be first, and might as well have been us. So, yes, but we won the draft lottery for what appears to be one of the shallowest drafts in recent memory.
Oh, that's too bad. So I had somebody on my Facebook page, well, doesn't it figure that the draft's in Montreal? Montreal gets first pick. I says, dude, they were in last place, like worst.
They played a lot better. Marty St. Louis, he's got to be able to hold it through next year, obviously, and they aren't good. I mean, let's be honest. The Canadiens are not a good team. But he got a lot out of them after the coaching change and after Mark Bergevin got let go, thankfully. But if Marty wants to coach, even if it's not with Montreal in the future, I think he has a very good future as a coach. Of course, played his college hockey at don't look. The University of Vermont, Dave is trying to say, just up the road from me.
Okay, I'll take your word for it.
No, it's absolutely true. So you can double check me, but yes, he played his college hockey at UVM.
3 seconds. Got it wrong. I played a buzzer. I'm just adding sound effects.
Gosh. Dave's ADHD is kicked in. Shall we go to what I'm playing, or was there anything more?
Yeah, no, that was about it. Take it over.
Okay, so the coyote, hit Dave in the head, and that's why you heard that sound. I haven't played a heck of a lot. I mean, thankfully we're over the COVID. I actually watched a lot of real sports. I watched. Let's start with that. I ended up watching 3 of the 5 hockey game 7s. The Bruins and Hurricanes. I didn't call them the Panthers this time. I'm pretty proud of that. I watched Toronto and Tampa, and I watched all of the Rangers and Pittsburgh. So I watched Game 6 of that series too, and so I watched a lot of hockey, and then I actually watched an NBA game all the way through. I watched Game 7 of the Celtics and Bucks.
That was fun. I watched some of that while we were chatting.
Yeah, and with 2 of their starters injured last night, one for COVID protocols and the other one with an ankle or knee sprain. The last time I looked, they were pounding Miami in Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Final on the road. So the Celtics may actually have some of that, red magic that Auerbach brought all those years. What have I played? I think I said when we did the short episode with COVID that I bought the 61-62 NBA season for Strat.
You like that one. There's someone else. Is it Al that likes that one too? There's someone else that really likes that season.
Well, Al Red Sox fan is a big Wilt Chamberlain fan.
Okay,
and that's the year that Chamberlain averaged 50 for the entire 80-game season. He averaged 50 points a night, including the 100-point night against the Knicks in Hershey. So he likes to try to see if he can get Chamberlain the 100 points. I have it in PC Replay. PC Replay lags quite a bit when it's streamed. And so I bought it for Strat because I didn't buy the game, but I wanted to buy a season, and I wanted to do a tournament, but you can't play alternate games in the tournament. So you have to do one series and then the other. Well, that's not what I wanted to do. So I said, I'll just start a season replay and see where I go. And just pick one, kind of the way that you do it. One game. If there's one matchup I want to do on a given day, I can do it. And if not, then everything else is auto-played. And opening night, Philly and the Lakers, I think Strat does home court. One of the weird things about that era of basketball is they were trying to promote the basketball in general, even college basketball, was not a very popular sport. Regional sport, certainly college, just like college football is now. But as far as television and stuff, people didn't really want to watch it. And so they did a lot of double headers, neutral site double headers. For instance, the real life opening night on a Thursday was at the old Madison Square Garden, and it was Philly and the Lakers first, and then I forget who's playing the Knicks in the second game. But there were, I think each team played like 10 neutral site games over the course of that season. So imagine. It
sounds so strange nowadays, doesn't it?
It really does. So you'd buy your ticket for, let's say, the Celtics, and so they'd be the nightcap. I mean, obviously, the teams weren't playing 2 games, and then if you went in, you'd see the Lakers and the Cincinnati Royals might have been the first game or something like that.
That's kind of what the USFL is doing right now.
It's a barnstorming. It was a barnstorming season, yeah.
Not sure I like what the USFL is doing because there's just nobody there. I mean, who in Birmingham wants to go see New Orleans, Philadelphia? I mean, just
right.
No one's there. It's
a lot of Halloween crowds, a lot of people dressed as empty seats.
So I know what they're trying to accomplish, but I just think you need the home crowd behind the home team, and they're not getting that.
Yeah. So I'm in the middle of playing Philly and the Lakers from opening night, and Chamberlain is just an absolute beast, but no one can really score around him. And so all the times I've taken the Warriors for a spin, they lose. And they lose rather handily, despite the fact that in my first game I did this Warriors and the Celtics, but Chamberlain dumped in 64 and 20 rebounds.
Yeah.
It really, I mean, the one thing I love about Strat basketball is, A, you can tailor the fatigue to whatever it is that you want to do. And B, it just seems like, we'll talk about this in the honeymoon stage. The players don't seem to be 2D card cutouts. They seem to have life, and it's So, also last week I did a couple baseball games for the channel. The All-Star game, by the way, I'm doing tonight, or Wednesday, if you're listening to this. It'll be John Tudor starting for the National League. So we're halfway through that season, and we took a couple weeks off, of course, when I had COVID. So that's going well. All four real-life playoff teams are in front as we hit the break. So that's always good when, if people kind of wonder, how accurate is it? How realistic is it? Well, I don't think the game is designed to tilt that way outside of math being math, but I'm not sure I've ever had a replay where everything is kind of falling into place. St. Louis is going to win that division by a mile. They're up 13 games in the middle of July. Everything else is kind of in play. Some things closer than others, so you never know what's going to happen. But yeah, to have all four playoff teams be in front now, that's pretty good. Mm-hmm. So we'll do that, and then next week we'll pick that back up and start the second half of the season. So that's pretty much what I've been playing.
Yeah, we're just trying to catch everybody up because we haven't had a show with just the two of us talk about what we're playing in some time. So we got that out of the way. So, all right, so let's get to the topic of the day, shall we?
Yeah.
All righty, so let's talk the honeymoon phase of a game. And for me, boy, this strikes me very hard all the time because I remember going back with video games. When I found a game that I liked to play, I couldn't stop playing it. And I think back to Sega Genesis Hockey, the first one, was it the 91-92? Very first NHL Hockey to come over to Sega Genesis. I was just in love with that game. I told the story about how I found it. I had to buy the Sega the next day, and I just wouldn't stop playing that game. It was every day, all night, just loved it to death. Same with other games like Left 4 Dead on the Xbox 360, which is kind of a zombie fighting game. I played so many hours of that. The zombies in the Call of Duty. And then Skyrim was another one that I have hundreds and hundreds of hours into Skyrim. I just can't stop playing Skyrim. So for me, there's a honeymoon phase. And if I really like a game, I'm going to just play this game until I'm sick of it because I just like it so much. That doesn't work so well when you're doing a podcast, though, because I remember when I was doing the Game Hounds video game podcast, it'd be like, Dave, what you been playing? Skyrim. Dave, it's been 6 months. Can you talk about something else? We're trying to talk. No, it's all I've been playing. What do you want me to do? And so it is hard when you're trying to talk about games and you've only been playing one because you really like it. So I'm in the honeymoon phase right now, obviously, with Hockey Bones. And I had that same phase with Apple Hockey where I just couldn't stop playing it. And right. I want to say my very first honeymoon phase game for Cards and Dice was Shootout Hockey.
Yes.
And I think I remember...
And I think with your comfort level in games, I could see why you would have played the dickens out of it just because of the style that it was.
It was one of my first games, and it took me it's not a hard game, but again, because I've never played the Cards and Dice, that was it was a big step for me learning Shootout Hockey because I was learning how cards worked and dice rolls and how it's a base 6, and that was kind of how I learned how to get into it. But I remember just like playing a season. It's like, this is awesome. And then I went back and I would order another season and I would go down to Staples. And I remember being at Staples and getting the printouts at Staples and cutting them at Staples. They had a cutter there. And I was taking pictures of all the things that I was sending to you. And I was like, see what you got me going here. Now I'm down at Staples again and I'm printing out another season and I'm cutting out another season of Shootout. And I think I got just about every season of Shootout. And I got them all cut, and I'm playing them all, and it was so big of a honeymoon phase for Shootout Hockey because it just was such an enjoyable game, and I just needed to get more seasons because I'm like, oh man, all these, like the brain blows up, and it's like, look at all these projects I have in mind. all these things I want to do with this game, all these things I want to do to you. That's kind of how it was,
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think about Honeymoon Phase?
Going back to video games, because the first really cards and dice games were, you never thought about solitaire until I got Spot-Strap Baseball, and I played the dickens out of that, just because it could. Wore up the key disc almost. So yeah, going back to buying games I forgot, someone gave me a Sega Genesis. So because of the money involved in buying those games, because they weren't cheap, even though they look old fashioned now, you're paying 35, 40, 45 bucks for something. Yes, I played the snot out of NHL 95, Madden, whatever, Madden, Triple Play, yada, yada, yada. So absolutely. And so when I started to get into the cards, and when I rediscovered Strat back around the turn of the century for the computer, and bought it on that when they sent you a card with your number, because there wasn't they had gotten rid of the key discs, but they mailed you a card with your code in it to install the season.
That's
you
awesome.
better not lose that code,
right?
Or else you're buying it again. Yes, because some of it just because of the money involved. You knew that you didn't want to get yelled at by your spouse going, "You spent $60 on it. Why aren't you playing it?" Well, it sucks, and that's just not true. And so you try to get the most bang for your buck for it. I know when I bought my first action PC game, it might have been baseball, and again, it was at a point in my life where we didn't have tons of money, and so sinking in $45, $50, $55 for season of choice and game was a lot. But yeah, you kind of now, when a new game comes out that you're excited about, Strat Basketball, for instance, and we could talk about a lot of these different games. Yes, you play the bejeez amount of them until you can discover their flaws, and then they get put away. And then if you like the game enough, you kind of, you put a ring on it, you marry it.
Yeah.
And so Action PC Baseball was one of those. The Strat Hockey, you play it to death for about a week, and okay, we did that. And eventually you just want to play it again and again and again. So I know all about the Honeymoon Phase. And
now, how do you know if it's the honeymoon phase or if it's just this is going to be one of your go-to games? You know what I mean? Because, again, the honeymoon eventually ends, for everything. Right. So how do you know? How do you know if this is a game that I'm really going to marry and put the ring on and be part of it? Or if this is something that is just cool because it's new?
I think some of that's there, but if there's something that doesn't strike my fancy or I can find the flaws immediately, the honeymoon phase is over rather quick. No, I bought it. I won't tell her that I bought it. She won't know that I bought it. And now it's, okay. I'm not really intrigued by it. I'm not going to mention any specific games here. You try something out, and you look at it in that 2 or 3 hour window. I usually know by a couple hours into it whether I'm going to try to figure out what to do or not to do. But if I find that fatal flaw early, no, we're done with this, and okay, I'll just take my losses from here.
Now, there was a couple of games that I played in the past, and I knew I was in the honeymoon phase, and I won't mention the games either, but I was like, I got this game. I went deep and heavy into this game, and then something else come up that I just liked a lot better for whatever reason. And it might even been a different sport, too, but I found myself, I would rather play this game than this other game, and the honeymoon phase was over. And I never went back to some of these games, or at least not on a grand scheme by any means. I might have played them from time to time. But there's been some games that I absolutely loved. Honeymoon phase, got deep into it, sank some money into it, sank some time into it. And then something else come along, and I was like, look at the squirrel. And I never went back to that game. Or if I did, again, it was just in spells. And I've had that happen, too, where I thought this is the one. And it's not that it's a bad game. It's not that I don't like it. It's not that I never play it. But it just didn't have the staying power.
When you have, we get to the point where we are now, when you have multiple versions of the same sport, and you can try to slide things in, you get excited, especially if you spend even a day. If you're putting in some serious money into a game, up to the $75, $100 to make something happen for you. And again, a honeymoon doesn't mean that you don't go back to it, but you want to learn it. You want to figure it out, get your adjustment out of it. Is there a project you have in mind? And just like, okay, yeah. Oh, look, squirrel. Try out something new or something like that. I will mention the game because I like the game. Roster card baseball. I love the game. And I'll get into phases where I'll play it in large chunks, especially when I first got it. But it's a game that needs setup because it's a card and dice game, and I got to play it on the computer, and so making sure that I have files for stats and yada yada yada. And I think for some of that, especially in the card and dice variety, you just kind of go, do I want to bother to set this up? I love the game, I enjoy it, but it takes longer, and my projects have projects, and so. So from there, yeah, I mean, that's the thing is, how much time do I want to spend? Do I want something that can strike my fancy now? Or do I want to go back and like, oh yeah, this would be the ideal game to do that. But then again, I don't really seem to have projects that get abandoned much anymore. And there's only so many you can run. Without something to let go. But yeah, I think the honeymoon phase is there because I think that there are probably maybe now 10 games that are in and out of the rotation, and you got to figure out what they do. And even the ones that don't quite make the cut, it's not that they're bad. It's like, what have I got to do to make this work for me? And I think it's much more the card and dice variety than the computer variety.
Well, then there's also after the honeymoon phase, after you settle in, then you have the marriage counseling phase, where you go back and you find out how much you really loved a certain game, and maybe you make some adjustments, or maybe things have changed and you got to do things differently. And I'll bring up Apple Hockey. Now, we know that there's a ton of charts in Apple Hockey, and I have them printed out, and I have my little L brackets, so when I play, I got to set up, these 7 charts around me so I can, read what's going on. I just find it easier than flipping through the book. I can just look and find immediately what I have. But there's a little bit of setup, especially when I go to stream. I have to find a way to get, those 7 charts or 6 charts set up on my little tiny desk here so they're not in the way of the camera, and I can still play the game, and it's not easy. So sometimes I say, well, I don't want to really play app because of the setup, or a stream app because of the setup. What I did is, because all of those charts were in Excel, I ended up creating a brand new Excel file and dropping all those charts into their own separate tab in Excel. So now, here in Studio B, if I want to play app or stream app or whatever I want to do, I don't need any of the charts anymore, because I open up Excel and I just click on the tab. I click on the tab for the face-off. Then I click on the tab for, where the puck goes. If it's a shot on goal, I click on the goalie tab. If it's a save, I click on the rebound tab or the whatever tab. So I don't have to set up anymore. So my setup time has been cut in half. So I feel like I've gone to marriage counseling with that game, because now, instead of the daunting task of setting up all the charts and the whole bit, now I just open up Excel and I'm done.
The other thing, too, and I won't mention any specific games here, when you find that flaw, when you find that rough on the diamond, and remember, no game is perfect. There is no such thing as a perfect game. Can you excuse the mechanic that kind of sours it a little bit, or the tedium of what it is that you're trying to do? Because even if you like how the game mechanic flows, if you're doing there's only so much spaghetti you can eat. No matter what you put in it, whether it's the clam sauce or the homemade sausage or the hamburger, at some point you're gonna get sick of spaghetti. And so, what going back to it, the marriage counseling thing is like, okay, I like how it works. The wife's gone for 4 or 5 hours because she's doing something else, and so I have the time to pull it out. And again, it's kind of like, as you said, with the marriage counseling thing, you fall back in love with it again. But there's only so many hours and so much, especially now coming into summer, that you want to spend doing that, because it's Vermont. The weather is only good here 3 weeks out of the year, and we've hit that time. Or again, like this weekend, when there's, and this weekend too, because of the PGA Championship, there's real life sports you want to watch, and you can only take that entertainment time so much. Mm-hmm. And so how do you make that all work? And because all of our universes have expanded so much with all the games that are out there. But yes, what do I have to do to make this work? And can I excuse? Okay, I rolled this, or I played this, and this flaw wasn't taken care of, and it's for depending on your mood, because one day you might go, okay, that's not something I like. But I can excuse it. Or another day might be frustrated. It's like, Bobby Orr lost the puck 5 straight times. We're done.
Yeah, there's a lot of games I go back to play, and I say this all the time. It's kind of a running joke. It's like, I need to play this more. I just pull out a game that I haven't played in a while. It's like, I had this game. It's fun. I need to play this more because I had so much fun with it. And I say that all the time. It's kind of a joke. I look over here, like I'm looking around on my folders and on my desktop. It's like, I need to play this more because I have so many games I really enjoy. But occasionally, now, has this ever happened to you? So you get through the honeymoon phase, you don't play the game as much, and you go to the marriage counseling and you pull out the game and you play it, and you're not going to say the name of the game, obviously, and you say to yourself, yeah, I kind of know why I stopped playing this game.
Apps, there's several in there.
And it doesn't mean it's a bad game. It just means that you've either found some games you prefer to play, or there's just something about this game that just bugs the crap out of you. And, so...
There is a term in Spanish translated into English. And it's the translation is, they are not the saint of my devotion. And I forget, something along that line. I just love how that's phrased. She's not the saint of my devotion. And so, yes, there are games that I feel that way about. I understand why people like them, and I'm never going to give them grief because they want to play them, but it just don't work for me. And yes, you try it, like, come on. There's a new version of this, or they fixed this, or look, you want to play this team with this game, or at least try and go, nope, I still don't. It's not the saint of my devotion.
Yeah. And sometimes you just can't put a finger on it. I think what I chalk that up to, like you go to a restaurant, and it's like, oh, this is a great restaurant. Then you go to some other restaurants, like, wow, I just like the linguine here way better. Or the chicken fingers here are so much better. They're not greasy. And that place that you thought was so good turns out it wasn't that good.
Here's a good real-life example. When I would go to Dave's actually been to this one. There's a Dunkin' Donuts a couple doors down from me. Mm-hmm. Well, after a certain experience we've talked about on this show, my wife and I don't go to Dunkin' Donuts anymore. It made me see colors and listen to the Grateful Dead and talk like Bill Walton for a little bit. And so, so for... Yes, Monty, turn off your mind, relax, and go downstream. Yeah.
Tell us about it, Ron. Tell us.
About 3 days, the first song that the Madam Speaker played on my playlist, I just asked for a random thing that Sunday morning, as I'm going to go off on a tangent. You know what? No, it was "Staying Alive" by the Bee Gees.
Even better.
And I'm laughing my tushy off because anyway. So. One of the things I used to love at said national coffee chain that sells donuts is their apple fritters, because it's fried dough and there's a mix of apple and apple jelly inside. So it's like, yeah, that's supposed to be. He goes, I'm diabetic, but they were so good. And I haven't had one from there since Boxing Day 2020. And so when we had COVID, one night we didn't do the coffee chain that sells donuts. McDonald's apparently sells apple fritters, and someone I used to know raved about them. And so I said to Sarah, because she didn't want to cook, how about we get that and get these instead of fries? We'll just look at the apple fritter instead of the fries. Okay. So the first night they delivered to the wrong house. So we got our money back from that. The second attempt, so we're now twice trying to get this stupid little fritter. And they deliver it to the right place this time, and we eat our burgers, and then we go to the fritter. Fritter was terrible. Instead of having the gooey, like I kind of expected it to be like the McDonald's apple pie. You get the apple jelly and the apple filling all in there. The apples seem to be baked into the fried dough. It's like, that's not what I was after. And so after that tangent, yes, I can certainly, you go through and it's like, that's not, the marriage counseling thing or the honeymoon. This is not what I expected at all.
The roof of my mouth really appreciates when I do not get the McDonald's apple pie.
They don't deep fry those anymore.
Yes, you bite into those and just scald your mouth.
Worth it. The apple on the cherry pies was worth it.
So there's games that I've gone back to and you've gone back to that it was definitely a honeymoon thing and it didn't come back.
Yeah. It's kind of like the marriage counseling thing, or you've got to give this a chance. It's like, nope.
Yeah.
Thanks, but nope.
Yep. So like I say, for me, Hockey Bones, we dated briefly. Actually, it was just like a quick phone chat, and it just
it was one of those speed dating things at Buffalo Wild Wings, right?
Yeah, it didn't work out, but then I decided to give her a call in the middle of the night, and we chatted, and we had a long talk on the phone.
It's just like the Lady Antebellum song or something like that.
And then next thing you know,
you're singing "I Need You."
We're dating steadily dating right now, and so we're out in the honeymoon phase with
your friends behind your back are going, "Oh God, again."
And, but it is fun. Like, all kidding aside, when you play a new game and you enjoy it, there is the honeymoon phase, and that can last just a couple of days, or it can last a long time. It can become your favorite game, or it can become something that just kind of.
How do you know? How do you know until you actually do it?
It could just be a college girlfriend that you have some fun with for a while, and then that was that. You had your fun with it, and everyone moves on. So it all depends. Yeah, so we want to ask you guys out there.
I got one question to ask before you start to wrap this up.
All righty.
Now that you have regular games in your rotation, and because we do play a considerable amount of newer games, do you find now that after your honeymoon phase, it's tougher to put a game in there because you have your favorites, or easier, or what?
I think I told you this on one of our conversations this week when we were talking to each other. I says, I'm going back. I think I was at the gym or something or whatever. I said, when I get back from the gym, I got to finish my game of Hockey Bones. And I hope I don't like it.
Yes.
Remember me telling you that?
I did tell you
that. And the reason is I was hoping it was the honeymoon phase, and I was hoping I went back and played it, and I finished the game that it bugged me. There's something I didn't like about it, and I was going to put it away, and the honeymoon was over, and go back to the other games I was playing, because I didn't want to fall in love with another game.
I get it.
I have my hockey games I play. I like the hockey games I play. I don't need any more hockey games to play. But honestly, I went back and played this game.
Here you are, yeah.
And here I am, picking up a couple of seasons. Streaming, I did some streaming Saturday night. I did some live streaming of it. And David was in there watching it, and he's the guy that wrote the instructions and helps rate the seasons and the cards. And he said I did a pretty good job playing it, so I was pretty happy that he was in there watching me and kind of checking things. And he's playing the 70-71 season as well. He's doing the playoffs. So I think what he said, he pulled out his cards while I was playing and followed along with my dice rolls and was making sure I was playing everything correctly. And that was really cool that he was doing that. I think I missed a block shot somewhere, which I'm getting better now because I got to check the block shot. So now I don't miss block shots because that's the first thing I check. So there's a couple little steps I'm doing to make this game better. But yeah, I told you I didn't want to like this game because I didn't want this to compete with anything I was playing.
Exactly.
I didn't want to have to go and invest in a new game with time and money. But if I'm going to enjoy it and it's going to be fun and it's going to make my life enjoyable playing this game, then I have no problem adding this to my repertoire. Even though I have a ton of seasons for a lot of other hockey games, this is just a fun game. And let me tell you, there's a topic for another day. We're going to talk about getting you through tough times. My wife's going through some tough health issues right now, and including when she was in the hospital. And I'm home playing these games, and it's just to take my mind off of what's going on.
The edge off, yeah.
And I'm sitting there worrying about it, and I'm getting worked up and the whole bit. So I playing Hockey Bones, learning this game, and it really kept my mind off of things, and it really calmed me down, and it put me in a good place. It was very therapeutic playing this, and that's a topic for another game. Is games as therapy. So. This is one game I'm always gonna remember, getting me through some tough times here, because I'm enjoying this game, and we're talking to her, we're talking to doctors about what we're gonna try to do and figure out what the game plan is with her and what's going on. And so for me to sit down and play a game like this that's so enjoyable, it's really been very helpful for me personally. So what about you?
I'll give an example of Strat basketball. There are two basketball games I really like. One is Above the Rim. It's an Excel game. It's a takeoff, a status pro. There's no coaching. It's a flip the card, record the result type thing. And I've played probably roughly around 100 games over the last few years, and it's all free in every NBA season and ABA season and 1,000 college teams and all that. So, if there was one game, if that would be the Desert Island game, that would be the easy one for me to do. And then I do like action PC basketball, although it takes a long time to play, and it's not, I think, probably the least streamable of their 5 games. But I do like to play it. And again, it's the great thing about Dave Cook's games is that they all play like a cards and dice game. You just don't you don't read the fast action card for basketball. It just plays itself out for you. And so then, I wasn't sure if I wanted to like Strat or not. A dear friend of ours has had trouble getting his game to work over the last couple on his newer machine. And so and they really couldn't help him. And so I think because he is a good buddy of ours, that I didn't really want to light the game and brag about something that he couldn't play. Like that matters in the grand scheme of things. And then I got it and started an 85, 86 Celtics replay. And I can customize this to my own thing. And whoa. And so not only did it get into the rotation of it's become my number one basketball game. I wouldn't say we're in the honeymoon phase because I've played a lot of it. I'm not even talking about PC replay basketball, which, again, another honeymoon game. But, that is now become my go-to game, and it takes away from the other games that were my go-to game. But the thing about having one is you play what you like. And in a game like that, you can kind of make it your own and go around the flaws that you see in it. It just works.
Yep, it does.
So that would be that one.
All righty, so that's the end of the game. That's a horn I was trying to work in.
I don't have to shake your hand now, do I?
I got to get a better one. I'm trying to imitate the Bruins horn. on the sound effect, and I haven't been able to do it. But anyway, so the game is over. The show is over. Let's get to our 3 stars, maybe even a bonus star this week. We might have a bonus star.
Okay.
All right, so let's go, Ron. Okay, so our number 3 star is Glenn Victor. Is our number 3 star. So Glenn,
he's done a long-term project doing mythical college football playoffs. And I think he's through 84 or 85.
Really?
And just because the playoff doesn't exist, I think he takes 16 teams, plays out all 15 games, and he's great for that.
That's cool. That's cool. I didn't know that, but good for him.
It's one of those useless facts I bring to the table, Gardner.
All righty. Our next star, number 2 star, is our guest last week, J. Thomas Hetrick. Thank you.
Wasn't he wonderful?
That was fun. I had so many other questions I wanted to ask him. I really did.
I mean, he has made me interested in an era of baseball that I really don't care about.
Yes.
And that's pretty good. That's like going to here, try this veggie for the first time. Oh, yeah, I actually kind of like it. So,
yep. And it was. And let's see, the number 1 star this week in no particular order is MP Fox.
Oh, yeah.
Nice job. Thank you so much for supporting the show. And we got a bonus star this week. The bonus star this week, because we didn't have stars last week because we had our interview, is L.D. Norris. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much for supporting the show, being a Patreon, and those are our stars of the week.
MP Fox and his son do baseball card rips on YouTube. And just to see the joy on his son's face when he pulls either a Tampa Bay Ray or one of his favorite players, it's just like, for all the bad stuff that goes on in the world, it's like, no, it's the same joy that I had at 10, 12, 13 years old. And can we get a pack with a Red Sox player in it?
That's how it was when I was a kid opening baseball cards. Get some Red Sox, Bruins.
To see that joy in his eyes, it's just wonderful.
Yeah, that was great. So again, thank you to all of our Patreons. We had our April Patreon event a bit late, but we did post that last Sunday. So if you are a club member for $5 a month, we put that into Discord, and we also, I think we sent that out on a Patreon notice. So, so you can check out that video, and we'll have to piggyback that with our May episode shortly. Again, the COVID put everything behind by a few weeks, but we're back up and running now. So we'll have the May Patreon event coming up shortly. So should we wrap things up?
Absolutely.
So, by the numbers, this has been episode 135 of the Digital to Dice podcast. We talked about the honeymoon phase of games. How fun is that? So we want to know your honeymoon phase stories. How long was the honeymoon? Did you ever go back? Did you have the marriage counseling with a game? Or is this more just been a nice fling in Bermuda? Let us know. Ways to get a hold of us. digitaltodice.com is the website. 978-751-DICE, 978-751-3423. And we need to have a listener feedback show coming up shortly. We have gotten a lot of texts and emails from listeners. Very, very nice ones. Holy cow.
Thank you.
We are really floored by the things that you're saying about the show. And we just didn't think we had that big of an impact, but stuff you guys are saying has been incredible. digitaltodice@yahoo.com is the email. Facebook group, facebook.com/digitaltodice. Ron, anything else before we go?
I'm set. Thank you.
What's for lunch?
I had beef ramen noodles for lunch.
A Digital to Dice classic. Talk to everybody later.
Bye-bye. For coffee, I much prefer iced to hot. It must be the New England in me.
I know people that, I used to laugh at people who used to drink iced coffee in the wintertime up here. I'm like,
I'll do that.
Freeze it out and you get an iced coffee. But then I tried it. I was like, this is actually not a bad idea.
It was an iced coffee I was drinking the day after Christmas. See?
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to me. Oops.